Now, if I want to replace the default functionality, the click functionality associated with taking my cursor and hovering it above any one of these objects and getting access to that comparison macro or a user form that I just showed you, I can do that too. That's another functionality that's built into the black belt ribbon. If you go to black belt ribbon, we're going to see the edit links option available. Now, I'm not going to click on this yet because I need to actually create an alternative functionality behind the scenes using Visual Basic. If you're not ready to do Visual Basic, if you haven't had any experience with Visual Basic or creating things like user forms, um, then this is probably not going to be for you, but eventually you might be looking into this. So maybe it's just good to see a preview of what can happen. The Visual Basic developer environment is a environment that exists behind the scenes in Excel, and it allows you to do some coding. I'm not going to show you a lot of coding here, again, because I suspect that some of you might not have a lot of experience with VBA, but what I am going to show you is going to be pretty basic. For example, now one of the things that I want to have happen when I click on a state might be to have a user form pop up, just like the prior example, except this user form is going to be different. It's going to show you a animated flag of the state and maybe the state statistics in dollar form and the full state name, et cetera, things like that. Um, and anything else I might think of to add to a display for an individual interested in information on a particular state. For demonstration purposes, I'm going to limit that to, again, the animated flag, the name of the state, and the state's per capita income for that particular year in question. Now, the form of this macro is the subroutine that gets run when things get clicked on, is going to be generic in that it is going to allow any one of the states to be activated and any elements of the information associated with that state to be displayed. The function's name or the subroutine's name that I have decided to create is called show detail form. It's going to be showing a user form with some details. The inputs that it's going to need are the state's name, state data, whether a flag is available for the state. And I'm taking some information, and also I'm going to be writing that content to specific cells in the spreadsheet, G1, G2, and G3. And then I also have to have a user form that I want to actually have displayed to show the state flag, to show the state's name, the per capita information, and whenever it is initiated and when it gets activated, this form should be loading in these various pieces of information. So this snippet of code and the prior snippet of code are really just assigning values to variables or writing information to the spreadsheet. It's there's much far more complicated bodies of code that you're going to potentially encounter, but these are some examples. Notice I'm also capitalizing on the fact that I know that there's a website out there that has some of these animated flags available for at least some of the flags and states in question. All right. So again, the subroutine, the program macro that I want being called whenever I click on things is called show detail form. So how do I say I want that to run rather than the statistical comparison routine? In the black belt ribbon, I'm going to be selecting edit links. That gives me a very simple pop-up modal that says, go ahead and indicate the stem cell, that starting cell of your data set, and tell me what the name of your function is. Well, not the function, but the subroutine is called show detail form. And I want its three inputs to include the name of the state, which is in cell, starting in cell C1. That is, I'm always picking the header row, so 1, to designate where in the column to begin. And it's going to be going down each one of these states and pulling the associated state name and its per capita information along the way. I want the per capita information, which is in column B. The header is in B1. And I also want a state flag to be depicted if it exists. And I happen to have, I've pulled in column D, whether yes or no, that online source happens to have that flag, and the code will respond accordingly. So D1 is the first cell in column D. And I'm going to say apply above when I click. And well, what happens? Well, the original functionality on clicking is no longer in place. Rather, what we have is some new functionality. If I click on the state of Ohio, for example, I get this pop-up that shows me the animated flag pulled from that particular website with the specification that I want Ohio. I have Ohio's name. I have the per capita income for the year 2015 estimate. Georgia works the same way. If there's a flag there, it's going to show me the flag and the per capita for 2015. Some of the states don't have flags in the database. For example, Maryland doesn't. Um, Oregon does. Washington State does. New York doesn't. That's okay. That's robustness and functionality. Again, you can create whatever functionality you want. And all it comes down to is prepping that functionality, having it set up in code, and then using the edit links resource in the black belt ribbon to modify what happens when you click on any one of these states. And eventually we can spend more time making all of this look much prettier, right? So I could take a look at that original form that I'd showed that has, again, the 50 states, and it has the 1990, and it might have the color aspects applied to that, and you might get a more aesthetic presentation. These things take a little bit more time. The more time you put into them, the nicer they look. This, I would say, this interface is not even itself complete. I can make it more aesthetic and more highly functional and interactive, but it gives you an idea of where you can go with the various tools that are available, at least a couple of the tools from the black belt ribbon and some of the basic functions in Excel.